Imagine a dark room. The only light source is an old clock on the wall. And the sound of that clock. Maybe you've never listened this carefully to the sound of time in your life. But now, stop for a second and think. With every tick, you become someone different from the you a moment ago. The you from a moment ago no longer exists. That moment passed. It's over. And a new you took its place. So let me ask you, where did that past you go? Maybe it didn't go anywhere. Maybe it's still somewhere. Today I'm taking you on a journey that's quite unsettling, but just as fascinating. Because physics has been telling us something very strange in recent years. Time may not be a one-directional, single-line river the way you think it is. And if that's true, your future self might be a much closer possibility than you'd ever imagine. Maybe right now, as you're watching this video, another you is simultaneously living a different life with a different decision. Buckle up, because today we're going to talk about the true nature of time, quantum physics, and maybe even the possibility of meeting your own future self. In the last video, we talked about how, if we went back in time and changed just one thing, we could lose our own life, our own reality. Today, we're looking at the flip side of that coin. What if, instead of reaching into the past, we could reach into the future? What if, instead of losing something, meeting yourself was possible? And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never look at time the same way again. Since childhood, we've been taught something. Time flows like a river, from the past to the future, in one direction, with no way back. That's why clocks always turn the same way. That's why calendars always move forward. And that's why we always imagine time as a line, birth at one end, the unknown at the other. But here's where something interesting happens. Physics, especially the two greatest theories of the 20th century, relativity and quantum mechanics, completely shatters this simple picture. Let's start with Einstein. The theory of relativity tells us this: time isn't fixed across the universe, flowing the same way for everyone. Time behaves like a stretching, shape-shifting surface under speed and mass, just like a trampoline dips under the weight placed on it. Think about it this way. Right now, as you're sitting there, time is flowing for you at one rate. But for an astronaut traveling near the speed of light in space, time flows much more slowly. Same universe, same moment, but two different experiences of time. That alone shows us something. What we call now isn't as universal and fixed as we assume. Now let's look at quantum physics. And this is where things really start to get strange. In some quantum models, time isn't even treated as something that flows in the classical sense. Instead, past, present, and future are thought of as a sea of possibilities that all exist simultaneously. Picture it like this. When you read a book, you turn the pages one after another, right? But what if all the pages of the book were already written? What if your experience of reading is really just walking through something that already exists? In this scenario, the future isn't a blank page yet to be written. It might already exist. You just haven't turned to it yet. And if that's true, your future self isn't a possibility. It's a reality. Just a reality you haven't reached yet. I know that sounds unsettling, but we're moving toward an even more interesting question. Now let's get to the big question. Can there be two yous on the same timeline? Can the present you come face to face with the future you? The answer to that depends entirely on which model you choose. The first model, a single timeline. This is our classical understanding of physics. In this model, time is a single path. And on that path, there can only be one you, wherever you are in that moment. That's it. According to this model, meeting your future self is impossible. Why? Because if you did meet them, that very meeting would change your future. And if you change your future, the future you met would no longer be your real future. Scientists call this the grandfather paradox. Someone who travels back in time, meets their grandfather, and changes his life could make their own birth impossible. Logic devours itself right there. That's why classical physics says a clear no. But modern physics doesn't stop there. The second model, multiple timelines. In other words, the multiverse theory. According to this theory, every decision you make splits the universe in two, or even into infinity. Even whether you drink coffee or tea in the morning might, in fact, give birth to a new universe. In this model, there's no longer just one you. There are infinite yous, each one living their own life with their own decisions on their own timeline. And that's exactly where that impossible meeting suddenly becomes possible. Because if you're on one line and your future self is on another line, a meeting between these two lines no longer creates a paradox. Because neither one breaks the other's future, they simply exist as two different realities, running parallel and sometimes intersecting. In this model, scientists say, yes, theoretically possible. Now stop for a second and think about this. If this is true, then right now, as you watch this video, there might be an other you watching you back, living a completely different life, maybe happier, maybe more successful, maybe living through something far harder. Unsettling? I think so too. But this is where science takes us. And this is exactly where the philosophical side of things kicks in. Because some scientists ask a much bolder question. What if the meeting isn't physical at all? Some researchers, among them physicists like Roger Penrose, propose that consciousness might be more than just a classical biological process, that it might involve some quantum-level activity in microstructures inside the brain. This idea is still controversial and unproven, but it's a hypothesis taken seriously in the scientific world. If consciousness really does have a quantum dimension, this could mean consciousness might not be a thing trapped inside time. The mind might be able to connect with the past and the future in ways classical physics doesn't allow. Let's make this a bit more concrete. There's a phenomenon called quantum entanglement. When two particles become entangled, what happens to one appears to instantly affect the other, regardless of the distance between them. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because it didn't fit classical physics at all. Now ask yourself this: if two particles can be connected in such a strange way across space, could consciousness be connected in a similar way across two different points in time? There's no experiment proving this, I'll say that plainly. Right now, this idea sits more on the edge of science fiction than science. But the history of physics has taught us this. Most of what we call impossible today was also called impossible 100 years ago. And if this possibility is real, meeting your future self might not be like walking through a door and shaking their hand. It might be something much subtler, much quieter. An intuition, a sudden feeling, a voice from within saying, "Don't," or "Do." Maybe those moments when you say, "Something inside me told me so," are actually a small signal your future self is sending to your past self. A warning, a clue. I know it sounds strange, but I want you to think about this for a minute. Has there ever been a time in your life when you changed a decision because of a powerful intuition that had no logical explanation at all? Stephen Hawking devoted a large part of his life to explaining why time travel should be impossible. According to him, paradoxes made time travel physically impossible. He even once threw a party for time travelers from the future and sent out the invitations after the party had already happened. No one showed up, but physics didn't stop after Hawking. On the contrary, it went much further. Today, there are several concepts taken seriously in the scientific world. The multiverse theory emerges as a natural consequence of certain interpretations of quantum mechanics. Quantum entanglement is a real, measurable phenomenon that's been confirmed by experiments again and again. The idea that time, at the quantum level, isn't flowing, but is instead made up of possibilities, is seriously debated in research on quantum gravity. And the question of whether consciousness is purely a biological classical process or part of a deeper physical reality remains one of the biggest mysteries science still hasn't solved. None of this says, yes, you can definitely meet your future self. But together, they all say, we don't understand time, the future, and the self as well as we think we do. And that's exactly where science is at its most honest. Saying, we don't know, but we're looking into it, is, in fact, the strength of science, not its weakness. Now let's step away from science for a moment and get to the real question I want to ask you. Let's say that one day, somehow, you came face to face with your future self. What would that mean? Maybe they came to give you a warning. Maybe they know how a decision you're about to make will shape their life, and they're trying to pull you in a different direction. Maybe they're simply watching you. Maybe your current struggle is, for them, a moment long past, but one they still remember. Or maybe this encounter isn't something that comes from outside at all. Maybe every day, without realizing it, you're making small contact with your future self, in every moment of decision, every time you say, should I do it this way or that way? Because think about it. Every decision you make right now is building the future you. Right now, you are, quite literally, creating your future self. Maybe that's the real meeting, not a physical encounter, a moment of awareness, and maybe that strange, unexplainable feeling you sometimes get inside, the one that says, don't do this, is actually a final message your future self is sending to your present self. Be careful. This decision matters far more than you think. Up to this point, we've been asking one question. Can your future self send you a signal? But now, let's approach the subject from a completely different angle. Because the real, underlying question is, what actually is this thing you call you? As a natural consequence of Einstein's theory of relativity, some physicists propose a model called the block universe. According to this model, the past, the present, and the future are all equally real and equally existing within a four-dimensional block of space-time. The future isn't a blank page yet to be written. The fact that you haven't reached it yet doesn't mean that page doesn't exist. In this model, you aren't just the body you have in a single moment, either. You're like a long, four-dimensional line stretching from your birth to your death, something physicists sometimes call a world line. This very sentence you're listening to right now is just a tiny slice of that long line. Thinking about this raises a very different question. Is the you from 10 years ago really the same person as the you right now? Nearly all of your cells have changed. Some of your memories have faded. Some have been distorted. Your values, even some of your beliefs, have changed too. So what exactly is it that makes you you? Maybe the answer is this. You aren't a fixed point. You are the entire four-dimensional line, the whole made up of all your versions, past, present, and future, together. If that's true, meeting your future self isn't meeting a stranger at all. It's coming face to face with a part of your own already existing wholeness, a part you simply haven't seen yet. Time, maybe, isn't a straight line. Maybe it's a loop. Or, stranger still, maybe it's not something that flows at all, just a concept we invented so we could make sense of that four-dimensional block. And if that's the case, meeting yourself isn't the strangest event in the universe. Maybe it's the most natural one. In your mind, go back to that dark room again. You hear the sound of the clock again. But this time, something is different. because you're no longer listening to that sound the way you used to. You know that every tick might be a small signal your future self is sending you. The flow of time doesn't seem quite as simple anymore, does it? Maybe meeting your future self is a much closer possibility than you thought. Maybe, every single day, without noticing, you're already having little conversations with them. So let me leave you with one last question. If you really did meet your future self, what's the first thing you'd ask them? Don't forget to write your answer in the comments. And if this video made you think, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because we're going to keep exploring the limits of time, the universe, and consciousness together. See you in the next video.